you guys have been out of school for a bit and crossed that bridge. So that the mindset of being a student into being a professional. So what was it like, I guess, that learning curve, or what I sometimes call the freshman year of life, entering the field as a woman of color? What were some of those experiences like, that first year or two out of school?
I can start again.
Yeah, we can just go in that order. I think this will work.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So, starting out, it is sort of, I mean, especially as, being a woman of color going into the industry, coming out of Emerson, it is sort of shocking at first. It was a little bit shocking at first how the lack of diversity that I saw in the companies and the groups that I was in. So in that, adapting to that, what you sort of do is what I was talking about that you shouldn't do, which is like trying to be like everybody else and blend in. You become so good at it when you're in these predominantly like white spaces or whatever. You become so good at chameleon and like code switching and all this stuff. And so I felt like I was taking on a lot of those roles and trying to be what I thought everyone else wanted me to be. And I think I think that's just part of it as you discover like what you like and what you don't like about the space that you're in and how you want to change it. And so I think what is important is to be like a good observer. And I think that, Emerson students are really good at that, but just take in your surroundings, understanding who and what, how things work, ask questions. Don't be afraid to sound dumb, because if you wait 6 months to a year before you start asking these questions, then it's really going to be a problem. So come in out the gate, like so curious about everything. And then you can find, those opportunities, and hopefully you'll be in a space that will support and encourage you to find that identity within your group. But I will say that, to be honest, it wasn't easy right off the bat. I thought I was being just accepted fully as myself, and I realized there were certain spaces and topics that I couldn't cover right away. So you have to sort of get there.
Yeah, so true. I agree. When you mentioned the code switching, absolutely. You get so used to being in a lot of times predominantly white spaces. And so you're like, okay, am I molding myself more to what I see around me, or can I like more so be myself, and figuring out how to trust that. And it can feel bumpy. It can definitely feel bumpy. So yeah, Emily?
Yeah. So for me, I sort of like fell into like this great opportunity at World Channel. World Channel's mission, aligns closely like with my own. So it's a public media channel dedicated to showing news and documentary programming, but amplifying voices that are underrepresented in the media. So for me, it was like sort of like, a great transition from college into my professional life, because I was already surrounded by so many people, so many diverse people, not only like within my own team, but also like the filmmakers that we worked with, the organizations that we partnered with. And so from that, I sort of started trying to, I guess my advice to you guys would be to like network and find a community, and keep sort of looking around for different, groups to find inspiration from, different groups to network through. Like, you never know, like, where you might find your next job, your next creative project. Paloma and I actually met in Stories from the Stage a couple years ago.
If that was recorded, I so want to see that, because I know you guys
I love World Channel, and yes, I remember that. Yes.
So, and I agree with what Maddie said, and I'll add to that, like, don't be afraid to speak up, right from the get-go. Obviously there's a time and place for everything, but making sure your voice is heard and trying to amplify other people's voices as well, like within your own team. Like just this morning, we were in a meeting, we were discussing this promo that we had going on, and, our editor said one thing, it wasn't so heard, and then, a white male also spoke up, basically saying the same idea, and then we're all on the side like, wait a minute, did you just hear that? And then we all flooded in with, actually, our editor just said that, and you know what I mean? So that's like a good way to be a good ally. you know, lifting up the people on your team is just so important. And just remembering that even when you are surrounded by diversity or differences, you know, within your own teams, like there's still going to be, you know, situations where you want to speak up for others.
I love, Emily, what you said. I've had similar experiences when I've worked in other settings where I feel like things that I wanted to say ended up being sort of annoying to be heard. Like I was being a nag by mentioning this and that. And then as soon as I like whispered in the ear of my like colleague who was a male to tell the same thing I said, then when he said it, it was fine. It wasn't considered nagging. And so, yes, I feel like it's important to speak up for each other and just speak up, just call it out, no matter how naggy we sound. We always sound naggy when we talk about stuff, but it's like, no, it is the case. And until we can't stop talking about it, because once we do, then we're just letting it cruise like it has been. It's been cruising, so we got to stop it from cruising so much. I'm going to try to make my answer short, but the whole story is sort of long, and I almost feel like I don't quite understand it either. But my last semester at Emerson was in Los Angeles, and I knew that I had the opportunity to stay in Los Angeles and perhaps continue with my internship as a production assistant job or find another job, but stay in LA was an option for me.
Okay.
And I felt like I had a couple production assistant, and this has nothing to do with necessarily with like the people I worked with, because they really were lovely, but some of the like extra production assistant jobs that I did on set, you know, there was this energy to it, which I kind of felt also with some of my colleagues and peers at Emerson, is this sort of pretentious, this sort of like rite of passage, this mistreatment of production assistants and interns, like as if they're, you know, expendable and not important. And I just remember feeling like after the LA experience, even though I love the city of LA, the experience itself left me feeling like maybe this isn't what I want to go do right now. Like maybe I need to like figure something else out first, because I just didn't like it. I don't like that energy. I don't like that that mentality, that sort of, I think, a facilitated abuse culture in the industry that allows people who just start out to feel like they need to grovel at people's feet. I mean, just like any other job, when you're starting out, you're learning, but you should be getting paid, you should be respected, you should be treated with respect. And I feel that in this industry, it's not always that way. And of course, haven't worked for every single company that exists, so I'm sure there are companies that do treat their interns and PAs very well, as they should, but I didn't necessarily have that experience. So I was like, I'm out. But mostly I wanted to kind of figure out who I was more. So I decided to move to the Dominican Republic, where my father's from. And, you know,
oh, wow. So you made a big move.
Yeah, I decided, I was like, you know, I'm just going to go. I never did abroad except for LA.
Okay.
Which for Emerson is abroad. I mean, for me.
Yeah.
So, because I know Emerson does have a real abroad program, but, and so I moved to DR, I think, to improve my Spanish, to connect with my family. And I really had been writing a lot of scripts at Emerson that were set in the Dominican Republic. So I had this fantasy in my, not fantasy because I hope it to be a reality, but I had this, this idea of creating films in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And so then I started working in the Dominican Republic. And I think that through my experiences from high school, arts high school, from Emerson, and really honing the craft of writing, and then going to DR, I feel like that has been a part of my journey of figuring out who I am. You know, I'm biracial, I'm multicultural, and I think that from the beginning of our lives as people who are biracial, if there's anyone who could relate, it's always a constant identity. Maybe everyone's going through identity crisis right now, but for us, I feel like it's from the very beginning. And knowing who I am and where I came from was really important, I think, for me to really have more substance in my writing, to figure out what my direction was going to be as an artist, and to really, how can I be my authentic self if I don't really try to learn who I am? And I think that doing everything that I did, no matter how convoluted and like all over the place it ended up being, I feel like I've landed at this point now at 33 where I really feel that I am who I am. And I don't feel like I need to rehearse who I am to anybody. And I feel like I can be myself and not apologize or not skew myself one way or the other. And I didn't feel that way when I was younger. I felt like I needed to be something. I needed to be more Dominican. I needed to be more this, more that. It's like, no.
It wears you out after a while.
Yeah, it does. It wears you out. But, you know, I think that finding out who you are, like learning your family history, being in the land where your father's from, being in the land where your mother's from, or wherever it might be, can help you along the way.
Yeah.
And I think it really helped me. Not to say I'm not still learning who I am, but I think that I'm in a place right now where I feel like fully myself.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and the statement is used a lot, but getting back to your roots, finding your roots, you know, and I do think that a lot of us sometimes when we're part of a historically marginalized or underrepresented group, you do sort of need to refill your roots and sort of to keep yourself grounded. And I think especially in the industry, I mean, there's a few things I've read about sort of the culture of entertainment, and there's a difference between paying your dues versus struggling. And so there's like cultural norms outside of even this topic necessarily, but do overlap that do need to change. And I think companies are definitely trying to do better. But yeah, I recognize similar, you know, things as well about what is this like, you know, what is my work life going to be, you know, in this industry. So great stuff. Actually, something you said, Emily, it reminds me of the words that we have now to talk about this stuff is what you guys did is referred to as a micro affirmation. So it's sort of calling somebody out in a positive way and being like, oh, this person actually said this first, and this is how they contributed. Shout out to you. You know, it's that sort of thing. So I'm excited now that we actually have ways to sort of frame the conversation and what we're trying to do to push change. So just wanted to share my little learning tidbit of the day. So
and I thought I'd add also that, like,
yeah,
given all of those little experiences that I had when I was younger in my 20s with the production assistant experiences and just everything in general, feeling like I didn't want to wait for gatekeepers to tell me what I could and could not do, who I could and could not be. I think that's what galvanized me to create my own production operation and create work through that, you know, since 2010. And so where I could create a space where I don't let anyone in who's not going to already have this mindset of harmony, respect, you know, we're going to work together. I'm the director, you're the production assistant. We're on the same level of importance. Yeah. It can't get done without both of us. That's the mentality of my production company. And we're very small scale. So it's nice and it's manageable, but I hope that it always stays that way, that we just, it's like kindness is so underrated. It's so important. So important.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I could agree with you 10 times. It's so true. So true. Okay. So the third question I have for you guys is, so both within and outside of Emerson, the conversations about allyship come up. So there's a lot of words out there: diversity, anti-racism, social justice, allyship being one of them. And sometimes they become buzzwords and we hear them a lot, but it's like, do we really think about what they mean to us as allies and what we see, what we look for in others? So I guess the question is, what are your thoughts on what it means to find or recognize allies? Because they can show up in different ways. So what are your thoughts and experiences with that word and what it means?
For me, you know, allies is like a newer term. I think that has risen out of, you know, the recent events with George Floyd and everything, and everyone's realizing like they have to take action in a different way. It's not enough to be a mentor and give people advice or, you know, even just advocate for someone's career on like a case-by-case basis, but to be an ally, which I think for me stands out in a different way, that you're not necessarily just in your one-on-one conversation supporting someone or you know, echoing someone or giving someone, vouching for someone's experience or what their opinion is, but it's also in those conversations where they're not talking to you. And I think I'm talking specifically about, you know, white allies to their, you know, BIPOC colleagues and you know, just human beings in the world, you know, how they can support and actually bring about change with how we interact with each other. And I think that that's also when they're, you know, talking amongst themselves and being able to correct each other without there being me in the room saying like, oh, hey, like that was a microaggression, that's inappropriate, you know. Having someone that can take what they've learned and what they've experienced from, you know, entering into different spaces, you know, interacting with different people, and teaching, you know, carrying it forward to other people. I think that's a true ally, like someone that can continue to carry it forward, not just in specific conversations. Oh, let's talk about, you know, increasing diversity in this movie, on this character, you know, in this setting, you know, but in everything. And we're still learning. I think a lot of organizations, big corporations and companies are still figuring out the ways that they can consistently be allies to this cause, to be like an accomplice and really like fight with alongside us, and not coming from a place of like, let me lift you up, but like, let's literally link arms and do this together. So it's not perfect yet, but I think there's a lot of people that are doing the work now to get to a place where they can be the most effective allies for the, you know, diverse and underrepresented groups.
Yeah, we're getting there. You know, I think it's again, it's a long journey, but it is sort of, there's been conversations about, is this a moment or is it a movement? You know, and sort of, you know, then there's the whole conversation about people being woke. And so it's sort of like, hopefully there won't have to be a whole bunch of alarm clocks over and over again to keep people waking up, and that it's got to be a sustained effort. It's totally a marathon and not a one moment race. So, but all right, I'm gonna stop. Emily, I'll let you go.
I'm like, how do I follow up with that? But the one thing I'm really thinking about is sort of like this call out culture, like that we have now, like coming a little bit more to the forefront. And I know like in my own personal life, you know, inside and outside the workplace, like I'm just trying to be, you know, super mindful and open to, one, being called out, and two, you know, calling others out when, you know, when maybe something isn't framed like correctly or, you know, stated correctly. And I think just like having an open mind and being, you know, just willing and open to accepting like criticism and like learning new things and thinking about things in, you know, different ways and different frameworks, is really important right now. You know, not one person has all the answers, but we can all like learn from each other's experiences. And there's so much literature out there that we can all be reading and watching and consuming. So being mindful of, you know, of what you're consuming, is really important right now, I think, as well.
Yeah, that information literacy, because there's so much out there, and it's like, what are the reputable resources, what's useful, and like you said, being open. You know, even myself as a woman of color, like sometimes I've gotten called out about, you know, different uses of terms and how to address people, and it was a learning experience for me. It's like, you know, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I just learned something new, you know. So yeah,
I love
getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, you know.
Yes, that's the mantra for 2020, I think.
It is.
Yeah, and like don't take yourself so seriously that you can't be wrong. Like, I just feel like obviously we're in this cancel culture stuff, and I feel like Trump twisted what cancel culture is. And so there are parts of cancel culture obviously that I don't agree with, but most people don't agree with, which is this idea that we just shoo people away and we don't actually deal with issues. But the idea of people getting called out, that's the thing that Trump doesn't want. Trump doesn't want anyone calling anyone out. The calling out is important, as Emily said, and I just feel like be open to yourself being called out as well, like we're all stating. I think that that's really important to note. Like, I don't think anyone can get on their soapbox, and you don't have to be on a soapbox to be considered some kind of an ally or activist. I think that there's this harsh idea of what an activist is, and it equals being perfect and getting it right all the time. And I just feel like then people are like, well, then I'm not an activist. I don't call myself an activist. But I think that if you are constantly thinking about the world, if you constantly have your finger on the pulse and you're observing and you're working on yourself and you're open to change and you're open to dialogue, that's a form of activism in a more consistent way. And so I think that is really important, to be open, just being open and not taking yourself so seriously that you have to be perfect all the time. Like, get it wrong and then learn from it and try to continue to make the positive difference that is obviously needed. And like you said, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think like allyship for me is in the realm of writers. And I remember one of my professors at Emerson, who was a Caucasian woman, she gave an entire class about screenwriters' insensitivity to racial stereotypes and tropes. And she showed us examples. She showed us an example of a movie that she did where she had a Native American indigenous character being an alcoholic. And she showed her work to us as an example of her being insensitive.
Wow.
And yeah, and I found that to be so striking because I think that I don't know. The issue obviously will be always like, you know, opening the door more to more writers of different backgrounds to tell their stories. But if you are a white hetero male writing a story, then you also have a responsibility. I mean, I think that the more people that take upon a responsibility that is, I don't know what you call it, like a heno, like a responsibility that is not necessarily just to your own tribe, then I think we might get to a better place. Like, for instance, I was watching that show on Amazon called Modern Love. And you know, when I think of myself as a biracial woman of color, part of the Latinx community, Dominican American. But I'm very observant to portrayals of people of other races. And I noticed in Modern Love, every single Black character was a secondary character. They appeared and they were shown in the show to kind of demonstrate some sort of progressiveness, like they were interracial couples, et cetera. But every time they had an interracial couple, every time they had a Black person in there, the story was never about them. Not once, not one episode. And I think that when we can all start to look at that and say, no, like this pattern, it can't be acceptable anymore. That the producers of that show, the writers of that show, the director of that show has to say, you know, look what's happening here. Every single character of color is a secondary character for an entire mini series. What's wrong with that? We can fix that. Let's change that. And I think if we start doing things like that, that's a kind of allyship as well. I think when you start like, you know, just moving away from this basic, you know, how the white man is the everyman and every person of color is secondary. And that's not the way. I'm a woman of color. I'm primary in my story as a protagonist of my life.
Yes.
So why is it that every time I have to put myself in the shoes of a protagonist, it's usually a white person? And I think that people need to understand that white people can put themselves in the shoes of people of color as protagonists, just like we do when we go sit in an audience at a movie theater.
Exactly.
Those are the things I think that everyone in the community needs to be an ally towards.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, what you're saying is so spot on, because there's this idea that there has to be this grandiose thing of what an ally means. And what I'm noticing too with myself and a lot of people is we find our own way to do it. It doesn't mean standing up on a podium. It could just mean so many different things. And so to students out there, you know, remember that, you know, we have the assessments that we use, like strengths quests and other things to help us discover who we are. And so this is one of those areas where you figure it out as you go. But everything you guys are saying about observing is so huge. It's such a big part, and just observing and looking around at what you're seeing and how it's being told. Let's see. So the next question is about community networking, a little bit about that. So we talked about this a little bit with community and support for underrepresented groups going into the working world. What advice would you give femme-identified students going into the film business after they graduate? And you guys have touched on this a little bit already, but anything that you want to add to it as far as, again, that transition into the industry as a professional?
Well, this is good because it gives me an opportunity to at least talk about my actual transition, which I also did the LA program. And and I found it extremely valuable. Like, I think just as it, maybe told Paloma it wasn't where she wanted to be, it can also tell you exactly where you want to go. So you can learn the things you like and the things you don't like. And what happened for me is one of my internships, which was at Fox 2000, 3 months after I graduated, they reached out and were like, hey, one of the assistants was like, I'm leaving my job. I got promoted somewhere else. Do you want to interview for my job? And that ended up being my first assistant job, working as a development assistant at Fox 2000, being on a studio lot, and it was incredible. And the cool thing was it was a smooth transition. I already knew all the people in the office. And so basically my job was just learning the boot camp of how to be an assistant, because I didn't have the like agency experience. I was like, let me answer phones and do emails and connect calls, like all that stuff. But, they were very understanding and gave me the room to get that under my belt. And once you have that, you're just like, you're cruising. But what I think was really valuable in the transition was, one, the community that I developed while I was out here for the internship. Like, a lot of the Emerson kids that I was in the program with in my last semester at Emerson, either like they didn't even go back to graduate, they just stayed. And so I was able to like reach back out to them. Also all the people that I met like through my internships, they were also people that I could reach out to, ask questions, reconnect again. They probably do this still in the program, where you kind of have this like template of an email, like, hey, I'm back, like, here's my resume,
Yeah.
do you know of any jobs? And that's so crucial. And then once you do land that job, whether it's a PA or an assistant or an intern or whatever it is, continuing to build that network. And we've talked about this a lot already, but being on that studio lot, like, I took advantage of it. I was like, any assistant that I set a lunch with or like bumped into at the commissary, I'm like, let's get coffee, let's have lunch. And literally that connection, one of the assistants that I met at 21 Laps, she's the one that told me that Sean Bailey was looking for an assistant at Disney and sent my resume in. I didn't apply for the job online until I was meeting with Sean. Like, it was someone sent my resume in. So those are extremely valuable. But also those are the people that you can ask questions to and not feel necessarily like intimidated. Like, you don't have to go to your boss and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. You can go to another assistant and say, hey, like, I got this email, how do you think I should respond? And those are the people that are going to keep you sane when you're thinking that you're like going to get fired, which sometimes Emerson kids want to be perfect, we want to do everything right. So you're just like, did I do that right? Like the tizziness. So the people that will calm you are your peers, maybe even some of your, mentorship supervisors or internship supervisors that you can go to without really feeling scared, and then you can build from there. So I think that's the most important thing, is continuing to just reach out to people and connect with people. So
yes, perfect networking story. I love it. Yes.
Yes. I want to add to that too, like something I've been trying to be better about in the last like maybe 6 to 8 months or so has been like setting up like just like a coffee break or like a lunch or like whatever it is, like an informational sort of like interview, maybe not even call it that, like with someone. I've been doing it a lot within GBH because I've been at GBH now for like 5 years, and I'm sort of starting to like look outside of GBH and inside of GBH to be like, what's next? So it's been a great way to learn about other people's like sort of like career trajectories and like learn about the other companies that are in the area, and what have you. But another thing, like, again, I'll reiterate what I said a little bit earlier, is like finding different groups and organizations to be a part of outside of like your professional like career. So for example, like I'm a part of Women in Film and Video New England, so everyone go check that out. Men, we need allies as well. And it's just been great to like meet other women, obviously, in New England. And it's from people all over the industry. So, I've like really carved out a space for myself in this like documentary industry in New England, but it's been a great way to sort of like open, I guess, like, my own horizons and other film opportunities come up. You know, like I still PA on like reality TV shows or like whatever film is like rolling through, just to like keep, you know, that experience up. And again, like when you join these different organizations, like you just never know what networking opportunities are gonna arise from that. Another amazing group that I'm a part of that you should all maybe check out is Brown Girls Doc Mafia. Again, very documentary focused, but you know, an amazing supportive organization, you know, that uplifts all women of color. Again, allies are also welcome, and just it's a great network. Like, so if you have a question, it doesn't matter where you are in your professional like development career or whatever, like you can ask anything, somebody will reach back out to you. Like, just keep asking questions, keep trying to connect with people. It's really just such an invaluable experience. And even with the alumni, the new Emerge.
Yes.
Shout out to Emerson College.
Yes, emerge right there. Emerge, emerge, emerge. Remember that word, everybody.
I've had like quite a few people. I just got my profile working a couple weeks ago, and I've already had more than a few people reach out. So excited to see, you know, the potential in that as well.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It all gets demystified too. There are human beings behind the postings. There are human beings that are hiring. You know, it's not all like smoke and mirror. So yes, the networking, huge piece of it. So let me just be aware of time here for us. Let's see. So this is a good one because we talked about this a little bit. Is the, you know, EQ, emotional intelligence, about communication skills. Can you talk about that and other skills that you developed as you got more professional experience? Like Paloma, you mentioned that the kind of team you want to develop and being a leader, but also the kindness piece of it. And we talked a lot about, you know, a lot of students have the technical skills, but sometimes there's the relational communication piece that you really value and would like to see more of. I forget which one of you had mentioned it earlier, but yeah, I guess talking a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, well, wait, hold on. Am I muted? Oh, no. So just just a quick to the other question, I would just say, you know, really everything that Maddie and Emily said. And, you know, I think you know, as soon as someone says to me, like, check out this grant, submit to this, check out this group, I like immediately go and try to see how I can learn more about it. And I feel like that's a good thing to do. So I'm definitely going to check out the Brown Girls Doc Mafia. And also, just in addition to the networking you will do with people you don't know, which is inevitable, I guess if it overwhelms you to think about it, try not to think about it like that. I feel like networking, for me, the idea of it, I don't like the idea of it, but what it really is, you know, meeting people and connecting with people. It really is. Mm-hmm. But what it sounds like to people in general, or what gives them anxiety about it, is this idea that you are going to meet people to use them for your advantages. And yeah, that's probably a little bit icky to think about it like that. But, you know, when I think of networking, you know, my network is the people that I work with right now are my friends from the arts high school I went to. The people that I work with right now are my friends from Emerson College, like my good old friends, where we like would just shoot the shit in the Multicultural Center and watch Flavor of Love, reality TV. That was networking. That was because these are my real friends. Not only do we work together, but we will go to each other's baby showers, weddings. Like, this is real friendship, and it's a friendship that is collaborative when the job comes up. So just don't discount the friends that you're making in college, especially since you're going to college for the same, you know, area of interest. So that's networking. So just remember that, like, don't think of it as this, you know, one man show, every man for himself. Like, you know, you guys are in this together, and you guys are going to be the next generation of filmmakers, everything like that. So you want to, you know, make sure that you stay connected. And in terms of what I've learned, Oh my God, I already forgot the other question that you
Oh
actually.
no, that's okay. And I want to apologize for a moment because I skipped over you by accident going through
No.
the last question, so I feel bad. But
Oh, no, not at all. I was thinking it made sense because, you know, I don't want to run out of time and I don't want to give a long answer, which they're really important. Executive emotional intelligence. Skills. Yeah, I guess I would say the emotional intelligence thing I would like to share, which I don't know if it's not something that I feel like I've learned. It's something that I've decided that I have decided early on to listen to, which is my intuition. And I would say that that's what I would advise you all to do. Like, there's a lot of stuff, like, there's just a lot of like projects that you might be, you know, going to start, or there might be something that you feel is compromising your artistic integrity, something that you feel like doesn't feel good to you. Not everything, you know, there is not one thing that might compromise your artistic integrity. It's something that you decide for yourself. It's a decision you make for yourself. So whatever you feel that is, if there's anything that you're doing that doesn't feel right to who you are, you know, listen to that voice. And I know I have throughout my career, especially when I've been advised to not stay in Boston, go to New York, go to LA, go to these other places. You know, why are you going to go to DR? There's nothing there. You know, I have been able to make a career for myself in the Dominican Republic, and magically, and I cannot tell you how, I've been able to make a career for myself in Boston as an artist full time, paying my bills. I'm not making like, you know, 6 figures, but I'm paying my bills.
you're doing it though. You're doing it.
But above all, I'm happy. And
Yeah.
I think that the other thing that I've learned recently, and I will end on this because I know I'm going too long, but the other thing
No, this is such a fun topic. We can talk about this for hours.
but just that my idea of success from when I was 13 years old and starting high school to today at 33 is different, and is much more manageable and much more joyful for me. You know, the idea that as an artist, we have to reach some sort of external goal in order for the world to accept us as being successful, I reject that. I think it's bullshit. I think that the idea that you get awards, or you get covers in the magazine, or you get the big company deal, the big company contract, all of those things are things to celebrate when they come, but not things that you should be miserable before you get them. Everything that you're doing up to this point, while you are doing it, you are creating that short film that you funded through GoFundMe or Indiegogo, and you created it, and you submitted it to film festivals or any other little gigs that you do along the way. Everything that you do that is you doing your art is success. You are successful. If you said you were going to be an artist and you're being an artist, then you're just as successful as a lawyer who's being a lawyer.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no compass for success in terms of those jobs. But for some reason in art, if it's not grandiose, fabulous celebrity, then you feel like you didn't make it. And that's just not true. And to hold on to that, and hold on to that joy of why you do what you do. So hold on to that artistic integrity, your intuition, and keep that balanced level idea of success so that you can be joyful in the process.
Yes.
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Emily and Maddie, anything you want to add?
I'll add, and I feel like this is something we kind of talked about in our pre-meeting, but as far as like emotional intelligence goes, you know, when you're first starting out in your career, it's like there's this whole, you know, when you're starting out, you're so passionate, you're so eager, especially Emerson kids. Like we're like a mile a minute, and we want everything
Go.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Like, give me the director's chair, I'm there. So, but when you're starting out as an assistant, like, just realizing that everyone's not going to be on that page right when you start out. And so as much as you want to share your ideas and have people, you know, sit down with you and talk to you and brainstorm with you about every aspect of the business and what your opinions are, realizing that your boss is usually juggling a lot of other things beyond just trying to mentor you and shepherd you and nurture your career. So understanding the timing of when you want to ask for opportunities to shine, when you want to bring your opinions in, and the best ways to communicate those ideas. And it's all kind of this fun game that you get to play when you're an assistant, especially to someone that's at a high level that's really busy. Like when I worked for president of Disney Studios, it was like, okay, can I catch him as he's walking in between meetings? Or should I send him an email right when he sits at his desk? Or, should I follow up with an email or talk to him on the phone when we're in between rolling calls to get information out of him, to ask him certain questions? And it's gonna be a little bit of like trial and error. And so just understanding like, yes, there will be times where you send an email where you think you have this brilliant idea and your boss may not respond right away, but understanding like you can also follow up. You see them every day and you can say, when they're coming in the morning, you can say, hey, I had this idea. I know I sent you an email. Can we talk about it? Can I put some time on your calendar? And it just, there's a formal and like a proper sort of way to get what you want and to further yourself, instead of like banging down doors, which I know everyone, you want to do that. You want to be that very like eager, aggressive person. But I have seen people with that sort of take that tactic and work themselves out of an opportunity because they're like, this person's doesn't leave me alone. They've become annoying. They're nagging me. So it's just like a very fine line. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is just like how to read people and when I can communicate with them about my personal like career growth in the midst of the workday. So I'll add that.
Thank you. Emily?
I really don't have much to add to that. I think Maddie really explained that very well. It is a fine line, and Emerson College students definitely, like as in my experience being an internship manager too, for the last like 3 or 4 years, like it really is an Emerson College thing, and you guys are great, and we love you, and we want to hear those ideas. But yeah,
channel that energy at the right time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
I think you're talking, but you're muted.
Oh, I know. I feel like I do that because I know that if I talk, I'll be like, it'll be confusing the Zoom. So I just let myself express myself, but with the mute. But I just said that, pace yourself. Y'all need to pace yourself.
So I guess I want to leave some time for student questions. So I guess this will sort of be the quick, like if you can give like one phrase or something that comes to mind for working on diverse teams, working with people from different backgrounds, ages. What's one piece of advice that you want to leave students with when it comes to the many teams they'll be working on in the future?
Okay. My one thing, I would say always be prepared. Even if you're like seemingly the lowest person on the rung, have some ideas, because you never know when the mic is going to be passed to you, and you're going to be that one person that's going to say something. Like, you want to have a unique thing to say that's coming from you. And so I think just always be prepared, because I think sometimes you're like, it's not going to come to me, no one's going to ask me, and then it's just that one time that you didn't read that script, or you didn't like look up a cast list, or come to a conclusion about something, and they're like, well, what does Maddie think? And you're like, crickets. So I think that's the best part, to make yourself the most valuable, a valuable member of the team, and always be prepared to contribute, no matter what your station or title is. I think that's very important.
Great. Emily, you're next. You're like in my next sort of lineup on the screen. So
yeah, I was gonna say like show up, but that like really, is along the same lines as that. Showing up on time, if not early, and like Maddie said, like being prepared, being ready to contribute to the conversation, and just like keeping an open mind and being able to like have an open discussion.
Great. Cool. Paloma?
Okay, so mine, I am going to try to make it one phrase, but we'll see. I would say, obviously, be open, and I definitely agree with Maddie and Emily. Show up, be prepared. I would also say, like, like know your worth, and know, like, I feel like there's this energy I noticed from PAs. and I'm sure I was this way when I was a PA, and I probably wouldn't be this way now as a PA because, or I have done, you know, assistant directing and a second assistant directing work, which is an assistant job, is this like super nervous, like you feel like you need to overly do things. Like I feel like I've seen production assistants just like, you know, kind of like get really nervous about basic things. Like we're talking about like if you see a cord on, you know, if you see a cord in the way on the ground, like move it. If you see that a chair is in an actor's way, move it. You know what I mean? Like, and there's this feeling like, I don't want to act, but just trust like common sense. Like the reason why you're there is to assist in the needs of the set, and you don't need to overthink it. If there's if you see that there's a water glass on the corner of a table that looks precarious, like it's about to go move it. Go move it. If someone tells you differently, whatever, just use your common sense and don't get overly nervous about basic stuff. Because it's really, because I thought about this when I was a production assistant, I was so nervous all the time. And it's like, for what? It's so basic. You try to get the thing done. You're just getting the video done. It really isn't that deep. So help them get the video done. Go into set saying, okay, I'm here to help them get this video done. That's it.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. I want to thank the three of you tremendously for, you know, having this conversation. Thank you, you know, students out there for being with us for the hour. Any other additional questions, you know where to find the Career Center. Our motto or our saying this, this semester is wherever we are, we're here for you. That is via Zoom, email, where we are virtually a presence for you all the time. Yes. So, so yeah, everybody have a great rest of the afternoon. Emily, Manny, Paloma, thank you so much. Thank you again.